I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Craig. Here. Mrs. Field.
Here.
Mr. Hyden. Mr. Nuss.
Here.
Mrs. Van Dam.
Here.
Mrs. Field. Here. Mrs. Whitty.
Here.
Mr. James here.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, will you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Sussex-Wantage Regional School District Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the school building and notice of said meeting sent to the New Jersey Herald and the Star Ledger.
The Sussex-Wantage Regional School District is a responsive, caring, child-centered community. Our mission is to educate each individual to become a confident, lifelong learner and productive, responsible citizen by providing and challenging opportunities in a safe environment for a partnership of families, school, and communities.
At this time, we will move on to the report of the superintendent of schools.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to invite Mr. Schwartz up to the podium and present the students of the month for both November and December.
November and December.
And Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Mr. Gall, Mr. D'Agostino, members of our Board of Education, and members of our audience tonight. It is with great pride that I stand before you tonight to present the students of the month. Every month, I have the pleasure of meeting with each of these individuals, and during these meetings, I am able to gain insight into their hobbies, favorite subjects, and extracurricular activities that they participate in. Each of the students tonight have been highly recommended by their teachers. As I introduce you to each, I will provide a brief snapshot of the wonderful accolades that have helped them earn the Student of the Month. In 6th grade for the month of November, the recipient was Kaylin Morris. When I sat with Kaylin, she told me that her favorite classes were reading and writing. She indicated that she has always enjoyed both of these content areas. In particular, she enjoys reading science fiction, and when it comes to writing, anything goes. When Kaylin gets older, she would like to pursue a career as a doctor or something involving dance, an activity that she has participated in since she was 3 years old. With regard to becoming a doctor, she is currently watching her cousin embark on her schooling, and she is finding the journey to be very interesting. When she isn't at dance, she enjoys her jazz routines. She can be found practicing her trumpet and participating in the SMS band. Her teacher stated the following: Kaylin is a hard-working student who goes above and beyond in all her classes. She is responsible, respectful, considerate, helpful towards others. She also displays a positive attitude and excellent leadership skills. It is with great pride that I introduce Kaylin as the 6th grade Student of the Month for November. In 6th grade for the month of December, the recipient is Jaron Martris. When I sat with Jaron, he told me that his favorite class was language arts. Jaron discussed two aspects that he enjoys most about this content area. The first is the fact that he is able to read and write about what he is passionate about. The second is that he's able to work with his peers during both. When speaking with Jaron, he indicated that while he is not sure what he would like to do when he gets older, he looks forward to studying additional coursework in high school and exploring new languages. Jaron enjoys football in his free time and plays on both sides of the ball, as both a quarterback and a linebacker. When asked which he likes better, Jaron indicated that he likes quarterback because he is able to be active and utilize his leadership skills. Here at SMS, Jaron indicated the best aspect of school is working with his friends and meeting new people along the way. His teacher stated the following: he is a responsible and hardworking young man who is always willing to help his fellow classmates. He is also cooperative, respectful, and leads by example. It is with great pride that I introduce Jaron as the 6th grade student. month of November, the recipient is Anthony Abramo. When I sat with Anthony, he told me that his favorite class was mathematics. Anthony indicated that he has always enjoyed this content area. Learning new concepts and problem solving have always come easily to him, and he is looking forward to the rest of his 7th grade year. When speaking with Anthony, he indicated that he would like to follow his passion for building and creating things with a potential career path in engineering. Currently, Anthony enjoys his math, STEAM, and tech classes most of all, and would like to find a profession where he can utilize all of his skill sets. Anthony is an active young man and can be found playing soccer, outside with his friends, or building new creations. Here at SMS, Anthony indicated that the best aspect of school is changing marking period classes throughout the year and spending time with them. His teachers stated the following: Anthony is a kind and conscientious student who welcomes teachers and students each day with a kind hello and departs with a have a good day. He strives to complete his work and seeks support from teachers and peers. Anthony has also shown through a variety of opportunities to be a great peer role model and support students in their learning. It is with great pride that I introduce Anthony as the 7th grade student. In 7th grade for the month of December, the recipient is Rebecca Quiros. When I met with Rebecca, she told me that her favorite class was mathematics. She expressed that she has always enjoyed this content area and that it has always come pretty easy to her. When Rebecca is older, she would like to pursue a career as a graphic designer or commercial artist. She has a passion for art and drawing and would love to be able to apply her passion and skill sets in these areas to a career in the future. In her free time, Rebecca spends most of the time at the dance studio. She participates in modern, ballet, jazz, tap, hip-hop, 5 to 6 days a week, indicating that hip-hop is her favorite. Rebecca has been with Dance Expression for the last 9 years and looks forward to pursuing her passion for years to come. Her teacher stated the following: as a 7th grader, Rebecca is in Algebra 1, and she is also in Advanced ELA. She is a diligent worker who always goes over what needs to be done. She is kind to others and helpful to all of her teachers, especially when assisting the science teacher and her household pets. It is with great pride that I introduce Rebecca as the 7th grade student. In 8th grade, for the month of November, the recipient is Eliana Grabeshi. When I met with her, she told me that her favorite subject was mathematics. She told me that she has always enjoyed this content area and loves working with numbers. Whether it is manipulating numbers, solving complex equations, or solving more simplistic math problems, she enjoys it all. Eliana is not exactly sure what she wants to be when she gets older, but she knows it will be something that involves helping others. Whether it is an accountant or doctor or any other field, I am confident that she will find success. In her free time, Eliana enjoys spending time with her sisters, playing outside, and reading. In particular, a good fiction book. Her teacher stated the following: Eliana is a wonderful student who always works to the best of her abilities and strives to improve herself and her work. She is kind, helpful to others, and always has a smile on her face. She is a pleasure to see each and every day. As we say goodbye to Eliana at the end of the year, I can say that she has had a tremendous impact on her teachers and peers along the way. She will surely be missed. It is with great pride that I introduce Eliana, who is not here tonight. And last but not least, our December student for 8th grade. This recipient is Heidi Out. Heidi indicated that her favorite subject was reading. She told me that she has always enjoyed this content area and is especially interested in fiction. Heidi stated simply, reading is fun. She would like to pursue a career as a cinematographer or a cosmetologist when she gets older. She has a passion for both of these areas. In particular, her skills as a cinematographer have been seen with a variety of videos here at SMS. She's worked on career day videos, a day in the life of an SMS student, and a variety of other works along the way. No matter which field she chooses, I am confident that she has the skills, knowledge, and drive to find success. In her free time, Heidi enjoys reading and listening to music. Here at SMS, she's a proud member of the Yearbook Club and our Builders Club, where she is assisting in the creation of our yearbook and a variety of fundraising activity events for the community. Her teacher stated the following: Heidi always works hard in every single one of her classes and seeks to improve herself on a daily basis. She volunteers frequently in class and doesn't let any obstacles get in her way. She's polite and kind to all of her teachers and classmates. As we say goodbye to Heidi at the end of the year, I can say that she has had a tremendous impact on her teachers and peers along the way, and that she will surely be missed. It is with great pride that I introduce Heidi out as the 8th grade student.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schwartz. Congratulations to all the recipients. You did an outstanding job. We have a couple other great presentations for you tonight. The next being what's become practice here, we like to recognize our outgoing board members for their dedication to the district and the community. Being on a Board of Education is a volunteer position. It's often an unpopular position where you have to, weigh a variety of factors and make decisions, with all stakeholders in mind, taxpayers, students, and faculty and staff. So this lady has always done it with class and has always done it in a very opinionated fashion. And any scenario I've ever had with her where we've deliberated ideas and you come at things from multiple perspectives, she'd always go, wait a second, stop. What's the right thing to do for kids here? And that should tell you all you need to know about her. And we'd like to recognize Mrs. Susan Fields to come up with a plaque. And now we'll give her the platform, the podium, to talk a little bit, an outgoing message. You're never at a loss for words.
No, it was a great honor serving on the school board for the last 3 years. I learned a lot, and I think each and every person should become a member of our school board because you learn a lot and you figure things out and you do what's best for the children and our community. And it's just not about our staff members, it's about everybody and a whole, young and old, because that's what makes our community. So thank you, and don't anyone leave our community.
We have one more surprise for you.
You have a cake?
Please stop. Yes. Yes, we do. We got you your very own lemon cake.
Every board meeting I always want a lemon cake, that's why.
And we have a later arrival. We're going to invite Mr. Schwartz back up to the podium really quickly.
Yes. All right. So Kaylin Morris is here, and she deserves to hear this. So in 6th grade for the month of November, the recipient was Kaylin Morris. When I sat with Kaylin, she told me that her favorite classes were reading and writing. She indicated that she has always enjoyed both of these content areas. In particular, she enjoys reading science fiction, and when it comes to writing, anything goes. When Kaylin gets older, she would like to pursue a career as a doctor or in something involving dance, an activity that she has participated in since she was 3 years old. With regard to becoming a doctor, she is currently watching her cousin embark on her schooling, and she is finding the journey to be very interesting. When she isn't at dance, she enjoys her jazz routine. Kaylin can be found practicing her trumpet and participating in the SMS band. Kaylin's teacher stated the following: she is a student who goes above and beyond in all of her classes. She is responsible, hardworking, respectful, considerate, and helpful towards others. She also displays a positive attitude and excellent leadership skills. It is with great pride that I introduce Kaylin as the 6th grade student.
now we have up next a really profoundly positive presentation that I know the board is very appreciative of. We talked about it a little bit at another board meeting, but we'd like to invite Mr. Tothup and his team to kind of explain a little bit about what they've been working on. I know it must have taken a significant amount of time and hours, and what they're presenting to us tonight. So can we have you up, Mr. Toth? Thank you.
After 6 years of work and about 50 interviews, I had done the plaque for High Point High School of all their teachers. This is me. For the last 5 years, I've been working on all the Sussex-Wantage schools, the old Sussex High School, closed when I was 5, middle school, Lawrence School, and Wantage School. It's been 150 interviews and 5 years' work, and I sought out students from the 1930s at 2 of these schools. They invited me into their lives. They told me neat stories like Claire Harmon and Helen Constable. They left school and teaching to defend the country in World War II. 2 of your plaques are completed tonight, and we have some very special guests here presenting the plaques tonight. Wantage School and the Clifton Lodge School are complete at this point. In the near future, you'll have the old high school and the middle school. I'd like to present Mr. Craig Brundle. As I was. Bernice.
Okay, thank you. Nice to be here tonight, I really mean that. My name is Bernice Strobel, and in 1966, I began doing my student teaching in this building, which was, I believe, built in 1932, or completed in 1932. I was very lucky to get a man named Tom Lubnow as my cooperating teacher and mentor. He was absolutely wonderful. I will never forget the first moments when I took over his classroom. It just lives with you forever. After High Point Regional High School opened, Mr. Lubnow moved there and became his social studies teacher there. And the old Sussex High School became this, the middle school of Sussex-Wantage. I just want to let you know I taught social studies to 7th and 8th graders for 34 years, and I retired in the year 2000, but I had a lot of trouble leaving those kids, and so I signed up for subbing, and I subbed another 5 years, all in this building. So this building is a lot like coming home, you know, for me.
We still need substitute teachers.
I think it looks fabulous. I haven't been in this building, you know, probably since 2000. So, and now Mr. Brindle will continue.
Mrs. Strobel and I have worked a lot of years together, so this is kind of fun for us again. Well, my name is Craig Brindle. I'm glad to be here tonight. I am a former social studies teacher for grades 7 and 8 from this very school, the Sussex Middle School. This school building in particular that we're in tonight is kind of special to me because my family has some history with it. My uncle, Walter Cobb, was the FFA teacher in the 1940s and the 1950s. And this was a high school at that particular time. My father, William Brindle, was the head custodian here when it was both a high school and later on when it became a middle school. And he served our school community for 32 years. I was a student here when this was a high school, and I was fortunate enough to become a teacher many years later when it was a middle school. I am a lifelong Sussex Borough resident, and I have been blessed to work with some pretty incredible teachers during my time here. None finer than my co-presenter tonight. Okay, to the presentation for tonight. Let's get to tonight's presentation. Mrs. Strobel and I want to give you a little background on the individual that really made this recognition tonight possible. I think that one of the greatest gifts in life is to be able to follow your passion. To see that grow and develop into something necessary and wonderful for the common good of all of us and those that will follow after us. Mrs. Strobel and I find it quite enlightening and downright awesome that a former student from our very own Sussex-Wantage community took it upon himself to make sure that we don't miss this moment and this gift left to all of us. The gift is from our veterans, and we need to recognize, honor, and pass it on. Now let's consider the mission that Mr. Toth had at hand. The endless hours of research, following leads, and unfortunately a lot of dead ends. Collecting and sorting data, necessary arrangements and paperwork to get your final results to where they really need it to be. Expenses, because let's face it, this is really your own doing. Now, this is when things really get hard, because you want to pay meticulous attention to detail. And even though no one is perfect, the one thing you don't want to do is make any mistakes. Last, you have to come up with a way to recognize and share the gift and contribution from the veterans that they gave to our country and community. How about a display put in a well-traveled area that would catch one's eye and beg for further investigation and inquiry? Well, Mr. Toth, thank you. Mission accomplished. We must always remember that those who serve in our armed forces do it quietly and behind the scenes. These brave men and women who so faithfully serve our nation are humble, mission-driven, and never wanting to call attention to the sacrifices that they and their families must make for the rest of us so we can live our daily lives. Mrs. Strobel, okay, did I mess up here? Yeah.
Go next.
Yeah, let me back up.
I think I took the cake on the messing up.
Yeah. Okay, Mrs. Strobel.
Okay. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Brindle. I'd like to start by just talking a little bit about this school. It means a lot to me. When you work in a school for so many years, you just can't help it. The teachers and the staff and everyone who's working in the school, you start feeling like a family somehow, like a second family that you have. And that is exactly how I felt when I worked here for those years. A few of the old family names I'd just like to throw out at you. Many of you may not know anything about any of these people, but I have to name them because they were just unbelievable. The name Jane Gilman comes to mind. If you ask any elderly person in Sussex-Wantage, and they will know Jane Gilman. She was history teacher extraordinaire. Unbelievable, and she loved the Civil War. You couldn't find anyone who knew more about the Civil War than Jane Gilman. Then we had John Sim. He was a science teacher who was devoted not only to science, but to his students. And the most gentle, wonderful man you'd ever want to meet. And I'd also like to mention Robert Clark, Bob Clark. The principal that Mr. Brindle and I were fortunate enough to work with when we worked here together. By the way, Mr. Brindle replaced Mrs. Gilman when she finally retired, and she was not too happy. She really wanted to continue teaching, bless her heart. Okay, our students, I think, will never forget these people. They've all passed away now, and that's one reason I thought I would mention them. The most recent one to pass on was Mr. Clark, our principal, who died very recently. I think it was just this past October. Okay, just a little word about Mr. Brindle and I. One of the wonderful things we did with our students was take them on field trips. And I had a list of about 6, but I had to cut it down. One of the best was the Franklin Delano Roosevelt home in Hyde Park. The students, we were studying World War II, and this was 8th grade, and the students were really, really excited, you know, to go to the very home where he lived. And then we did a little, going back further in history, we did a trip to the Old Mine Road. I think that might have been 7th grade. 8th grade was specifically, you know, getting to modern history. Well, that was the past, but we are here tonight to talk about the future and to honor our veterans who were part of our school family, because that's exactly what they were. So let's get on to the reason that we're here, really, to discuss veterans a little bit. Men and women who volunteer to risk their lives in foreign lands, often in open combat, they are the real thing. I call them the true patriots, red, white, and blue, all the way. They are going to be separated from their family for long, long periods of time. That's bad enough. When they come home again, they discover sometimes that their country has changed a lot. And then they realize that they've changed as well. And sometimes we have great difficulty with that. Aside from physical injuries, which are treated at veteran hospitals, they have wounds that we can't see, okay? We just can't see them, but they're there. I know everyone in this room has probably heard of PTSD, standing for Traumatic Stress Disorder, Traumatic Stress Disorder. Those are words, you know, that really hit hard when you realize what they mean. No one wants to hear the dreaded words, homeless vet, and even worse, suicide. But we have to face the facts, okay? They're out there. This is not very uplifting, what I'm saying here, but are there any encouraging signs? I say yes, there are. And I'd just like to talk about a few of them. I want you to think back for a minute today. How do we treat veterans today? I have noticed that we treat them with great respect, which they deserve. And I think back to the days of Vietnam, and I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, especially from our young people who didn't really understand what it was all about, in my opinion. Now, another thing I think that we can be happy about is that I know that there are new programs out there to help veterans. I came across one when watching a television show on when it was around Veterans Day, celebration. I'm going to try to describe it to you very, very briefly. I wrote a whole page on this, and then I said, no, I cannot take all this time, so I really shortened it. I made up a name for it because I never caught the name on TV. I call it Post-Active Duty Boot Camp for Unemployed Vets. And in a nutshell, this is how it works. For quite a few months, maybe half a year, maybe more, they undergo intensive physical training. It's almost like they're in the Army again. Until they are really physically fit. They have to undergo some testing to make sure they know what they're doing, and then they graduate. And they become, and this is all a program of our government and the Army, and as I said, the federal government, they become quote unquote certified physical fitness trainers, and they get jobs. They have a wonderful network that finds work for them, and they get self-esteem returned. The greatest thing is, though, they help each other. What made me want to watch this show is it started out with the men all in fatigues, and they're hauling another soldier over their shoulder in fatigues, and they're walking and running, and and this just builds confidence in themselves and what they can do. Okay, I'd like to just say one other thing. In November, I was fortunate enough to attend a dinner for veterans with Frank Toth, who told me about it, and we decided to go there. And I know Frank has been there many times. For me, it was a new experience. It was held at a local church. I think I'll mention the name, the Christian Faith Fellowship Church, which is on Route 94. I'd never been there before. It was very interesting. They had a dinner for veterans, and many of the veterans spoke about their background, and sometimes it was hard to listen to because they had hit some rock bottoms there. And then they told us about their military, experiences. I have to tell you the truth, I was like sometimes pinching myself a little bit. It was like being in a big room surrounded by living history. We had all the branches. We had the Marines, we had the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, and it was really incredible. It was absolutely great, and I thank Frank for bringing it up and for me kind of saying, gee, I'd like to know that, because it made me really really happy to see them. They all care about each other so much. I'm going to end now with a word that we hardly ever hear, and most people, well, a lot of people may not know what it means. It's defined as a very strong bond of friendship and commitment within a group of friends or teammates. And that word is camaraderie. It would be a great spelling bee word, believe me. I saw a lot of that camaraderie at that dinner, and it made me so happy. I saw veterans talking to each other, looking at each other eye to eye, going over things that they had gone through. It was just wonderful. That's basically what I want to say. I think I'll end with simply saying it's a very good thing, this camaraderie. I think it's going to be, I think it's one of the things that helps the vets a great deal. Okay, so, Mr. Brindle, your turn. We decided to do this. You don't want to listen to one person all the time too much.
All right, the veterans that we are honoring here tonight serve both our nation and our very own Wantage School community. They have greatly contributed to the effort of allowing our children that pass through the Wantage School building over the many years in existence to receive that valuable gift of an education. We all realize that it takes an effort of a village, and our veterans really play a huge part of that on all levels. The word names, we're gonna...
Yes.
Let's do that now.
We're going to do
and
that
I'll
now,
the
yeah.
last.
Okay, I will start. I believe there are 32 names, right, thank you, Frank. There are 32 names on the plaque. And we'll read them first, and then we're going to show the plaque. I'll start reading.
Wait, we wanted to do the names for...
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. How could
We coordinated,
I?
but
Yes, we did, but we're
we're a long way.
We're just, amateurs here. Okay, I'm addressing the board here now. Mr. D'Agostino, President of the board, and fellow board members. Mr. Gall, Superintendent and Lawrence School Principal. Mr. Schwartz, Middle School Principal, and Mr. Gregory, Wantage School Principal. So, and this plaque will be in the Wantage School. So, Mr. Gregory, it's going to be in your building. Wonderful. Okay, here we go. By the way, on the plaque, yes.
Let me just say this and then we'll start the names.
Okay.
The plaque.
Once I get started, I get wound up. I just can't.
On behalf of Frank Toth,
Yes.
Mrs. Strobel and I are honored
Do that.
to present to Mr. Gregory, Principal of the Wantage School, and the Sussex-Wantage School Board of Ed. This plaque, which will be displayed in the Wantage School building for all to see.
Are we displaying it now?
Yeah, I'm gonna just
Oh, yeah.
unveil it, and then
Okay.
you do the
Okay.
first 16.
Right,
Sure. Back to Frank.
We get you all to smile. I hide you guys as teachers, by the way.
I'll take the plaque and hold it and stuff. Thank you.
Okay, the plaque includes the where they were when they were in Army, Korean War, etc. Okay, Kenneth G. Appleton, Joseph A. Barzak, Ewald H. Bergman, Edward E. Bowman, Earl J. Brown, Robert Coates, Helen Hill Constable, Joseph Cooper, Donald C. Crane, Paul S. Dawling, Charles L. Demarest, Robert Irvin, Wilfred W. Bill Falling, Christopher Gregory, August Groeschel, Max L. Hartman.
Okay, I'm gonna trade places.
Great
with you.
places, absolutely.
All right, Ralph W. Hahn, William Howe Jr., Harold Johnston, Arthur T. Caprell, Raymond J. Kendall, Charles E. Lorber, Joseph F. Malta, Francis J. McCormick, James A. Reiser, Frank J. Rapassi, Patrick J. Salmon, Louis Sparta, Albert L. Stark, Roland S. Titeback, Peter Tucson, John H. Williams. Now, Mrs. Strobel and I were lucky enough to have worked with some of these
Many
great
of these.
individuals. And
Mr.
it was an
Reiser,
honor.
Mr. Tucson, many of them, Harold Johnston.
All right, that completes the Wantage School plaque. So we'd like to turn it over for the Lawrence School.
I'd like to introduce our special guest tonight, who will present the Lawrence School flag. Ray Williams built our Wantage War Memorial, and Chris helped him. They also raised $60,000 for local veterans charities. And there's a very poignant tale. One of our returning veterans, he left $50 for construction. He was homeless. He left his war medals, and Greg used that money and was very honest and forthright and had a lot of integrity. And those medals are at the base of the War Memorial. Also, Mr. Nuss was with 1st Marine Division at Quine Tree. The Battle of the Rock Pile was at Operation Pegasus, a lot of Maelstrom. He was in the 1st and 9th Marines. And they would like to present your Lawrence School flag to you.
All right. I don't have a script. I'm just going to wing this. But I want to say first couple things. One, my name is Lieutenant Greg Williams. I'm with the Navy's Expeditionary Force. I have served in operations in the Middle East and Afghanistan. I want to say a couple things about Frank. So if you don't know Frank, take a minute to go meet Frank, okay? Frank Toth, I met him a long, long time ago. I don't even remember how we met, but I will not forget the name Frank Toth, and never. Nobody should in this room. Frank is the smartest guy I know, okay, when it comes to history and when it comes to military history. All right. You ask any question to Frank regarding the military history of this country, or anybody in Sussex County, let alone probably New Jersey, he will tell you their entire biography, where they served, what they did, what wars they were in, what the war, what the battle, everything. It's amazing, okay? Frank was very instrumental when we built this war memorial in the park many years ago. And the amount of the education that I had gotten from Frank during that period was invaluable. So Frank, I just want to give Frank a round of applause. The plaques that he had put together here to honor the people that have served the school, bottom line, none of this exists without the women and men who serve in the military, okay? John can speak to this because John is a predecessor of mine. He served in Vietnam, okay? These guys went before me, okay? And the guys in World War II went before him, and the guys in Korea, and World War I, Civil War, the Revolutionary War. Everything goes back to somebody going before us, okay? And now, I wear the uniform, I'm sure somebody else, everybody here wears a uniform. The fact that these men and these women, they serve and they do this allows us to make these plaques and have the freedom to be able to talk about it. I'm not going to take up too much time, so I'm going to let John speak, who is a Marine, Semper Fi. Being from the Expeditionary Force, the Navy Seabees, we used to have fun with the Marines. Okay.
But everybody gets along. That's the nice part. I really was quite honored having Frank ask me to be here tonight. It's good to see that somebody's taking the time to say thank you. Like they said, I'm from the Vietnam era. When we came back, probably understood they spit on us. There was no respect or nothing for the men and women that served. And it's really good to see that. It's come full circle now, and we look to our veterans, our first responders, and we try to give, I say try in this crazy world that we're living in today, give the respect to those that are there for our protection. And so, thank you, Frank, for bringing this forward, and it's really good to see. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the people that are serving today, and those that go and come back are the ones that you were honoring today. But it's really those that do not come back. Those they gave their all. And those are the ones that we really, Veterans Day or any other time, a prayer for them and their families, because they're not the ones that gave. We went, we came back, we're okay. Some of us have problems, we're okay. But some of them really do have problems. And service life, I served my time. Greg's making a career out of it, thank you. And it's something there. I don't know if anybody knows, we had a student that came through here a few years ago. And it was a she. And she's now serving in the Army as a general. And she came through these walls right here. So it'd be nice, you know, we had the ROTC for a while, and it kind of pushed them off the campuses and everything. But it'd be nice to educate people, their students as they come through, that this is another career. I mean, what Greg is doing something he likes, It's a great career, and there's a lot of opportunity for students there as they go. And I don't think, you know, when I went through school, they never discussed military or anything. I don't think they do it now. So maybe it's something to look to put in your curriculum. And what Greg is here doing and Frank is doing, maybe it should be done at a auditorium type thing, like for Veterans Day. Let the students really know that there's more to it than being a doctor, we need them, being a scientist and everything. We do need our men. We don't have, and ladies. Because today, it's no more where you get drafted. When I went, you had to go. Now it's just, would you please come, or are you qualified to go? So I think it's something that we should look at and look ahead as a career for the children. And it is enlightening, there's a lot you learn, and there's a lot, you go in as a kid and you come out as a grown-up. And we don't have that today. Some of these children live at home till they're 30. I mean, I got out of that one. It was the new world, you know, you grow up quick. And so just mention that. And like I said, the young lady, her name was, going through was Chris
Spadavecchia.
And I'm proud to say that's my niece. And she's now General
Yes.
Villager.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of that. And she made it coming through here. That's really something, going through High Point. And there aren't many female generals. She works for a large corporation, so she's really general in a corporation. Large corporation, BMW. So,
I found out today she was the inspiration to another
Yes.
young lady who went on.
My youngest niece, I got to know Chris Spadavecchia because I would bring her to the shows that we put on, that the school put on in the spring usually. And they just developed a friendship, even though there was an age difference. And one day Krista, my niece, said, do you think you could get Chris Spadavecchia to when she comes home from West Point to talk to me? Because I think I'd love to go there. And I said, oh, well, yeah, I'll call. So I called, and Chris said, sure, and so we met at one of the restaurants here in Sussex Borough. And I went with Krista, my niece, and we just talked about what it's like being a woman, because it was pretty early, when they were doing this with Chris going to, West Point. And it turned out my niece is a 1995 graduate of West Point, and now she's a colonel.
Great.
Yep, making it a career. Yep.
We have a better football team now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for having it.
Yes. I just want to say thank you very much, Frank. I'm honored that you asked me to be part of this, and I'm honored to be a member of this community and to have the opportunity to work with both of these guys and you on this project, and just to be able to present this today. And I'd like to read the names of the teachers that are on this class. Yep. You wanna go ahead, Jim? Okay, so we have Joseph Barczak, Joseph Cooper, Charles E. Lorber, Frank Pierce, Patrick P.J. Sun, Michelle Storms, and Harold Veslich. I'm gonna mess this up. Veslich. We said that 49 times today before. I still got it wrong. So, thank you very much.
Who are we presenting this thing?
Thought I said that.
Let's all look here at once.
Why don't we get Mr. Joseph in
Yeah.
Well, you had a
And
party
the other,
thought.
and this one too.
Yeah,
Mr. Brindle, why don't we get everyone up?
Maybe
go with
can
the
we
front
get a
here.
whole board picture? Is that crazy or, yeah?
Someone else?
Right in the middle there. Get in the middle.
Why don't you get in the middle here, in the front? Yeah, come in the front here. You also,
Go in the middle.
go in the middle, please.
I was maybe December 10th, 1969. Both my parents were there. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a waiter. Came home pregnant with me. Gucci, 12 feet back.
They're all back there.
Awesomeness.
Oh, I'm not on. I had it up too.
Oh, yeah?
So I think Frank also wants to just finish with a few last words, and for anybody who doesn't know, Frank is also a veteran, Army. It's okay, it's unfortunate. If we don't know, Navy won the other day, just letting you know. Come on, Frank.
I wanted to share a final thought. It's the most important lesson I learned once here in this school as a young lad. The lesson I was able to carry with me in all my travels to some good places and some really bad ones. The lesson helped sustain me, and I deeply believe those fine teachers on your plaque always remember that lesson too. A part of our history tells why we serve, why we become firemen and EMTs and volunteer on boards to make our communities better places. It also says who we are. They're the timeless words of one of our most patriotic citizens. His wisdom, faith, and moral convictions made us better people, and his words changed the world. Here's what he said. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln.
So if I can just say that, I think we're extraordinarily humbled by your expression of gratitude for the servicemen and women of the country. I know we're all personally grateful for your dedication and service to the country, your patriotism and commitment to the school and the community and the kids, and recognizing these folks is second to none. We're honored to accept them, and to echo the words of Mr. Nuss, thank you. I
You're
know our
very
board
welcome, sir.
probably wants to say a few words too, so I invite them to do so.
If I could just for a minute, we had a great conversation at the October meeting. My parents were both vets. I was actually made in Vietnam. My parents both served in Cu Chi. My mom was an Army nurse in Cu Chi. My father was a ranger, and they came home pregnant with me because they served 9 months together. What you've done here is short of amazing. It's not talked about a lot. I watched my mother die a slow, miserable death, and she didn't have the opportunity to speak to these things. So to see you reciting as he was speaking to me, I think it's something we all need to learn from. I think is missing today. My greatest gratitude, sir, for what you did tonight.
Thank you
Nothing
for your
short of
family
amazing. So
service.
thank you. Thank you very much.
I too would just like to thank you all for being here. This was an unbelievable presentation. I know I could probably speak for the board when I say I got chills multiple times just listening to the stories and the names. And it's important for our students to know the history and respect the history. And we just thank you all and all of our veterans and those serving present as well. So thank you. Does anyone else on the board like to say anything?
I'd like to do a standing ovation for you. Thank you.
Amen.
Two more plaques to go. Thank you for letting us tell their stories. Our stories are now a part of you, and your stories are now a part of us. Thank you for the privilege.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
all
much,
for your
sir.
service to our community and to our nation.
And for the record, I would have joined in the standing ovation. Thank you all very much. That's good. That's good.
By the time we put it up, we have to go back down.
So just to expand on the report of the superintendent, just to report out on some of our committee meetings. The board is free to interject. We had a community outreach committee. As you're all well aware, we've had some significant community events as of late, namely storms and down power lines. So we reflected on some brainstorming strategies about how we could potentially better serve the community. For example, if one of our buildings is up and running before the greater portion of the community, could we potentially coordinate with OEM and offer our facility up in some capacity? Policy met. We had a pretty extensive policy committee meeting. In particular, we were joined by our nursing staff and part of our physical education staff, and we talked about some overall strategies about our health and wellness policy, about how to try to further expand on instilling a sense of good nutritional habits in our kids and what we can do in our classrooms. Regarding that, we also talked about our policy concerning head lice and how to more proactively communicate measures in that regard, give some people some ideas about how they can combat challenges of that nature. And we talked a little bit about Narcan administration with our nurses. Buildings and grounds met. We had kind of a marathon set of meetings today. We reviewed a number of completed projects. The gym, SMS gym, final punch list was pretty much completed, and we're just waiting for a final review. We had some boiler parts replaced, dishwasher, Lawrence School pavings completed. West and SMS PA systems, new installations, coordinated with some of our other announcements, have been completed, as well as an add-on at the Lawrence School heat pumps. Outdoor freezer at the Lawrence School was completed. We just replaced some fire doors on the interior of the middle school. CEL LED project is making headway. Mr. Petrowski, our facility director, is starting to come up with some ideas for the budget cycle for next year. Kitchen shelving rather. Our old truck sold on Gov Deals. I think we got $5,300 for that. We talked about the greenhouse that we anticipate putting up at Sussex Middle School. We're looking at this area right out here. We really can't make any headway with that until springtime when the ground thaws, but we're looking to level out that area. And we may have to be flexible in our design just to fit our budgetary constraints. CEL front doors, one of the areas that is in need of repair, part of a front door, so we're looking at the examination of, do we repair them or do we have the funds to replace them and further enhance them at this point? And trees, we have some prices on landscapers coming around to remedy some of the tree limbs and things like that when they're falling down after the storm. We also talked about the potential to increase substitute custodian pay, future projects like enhancing the Lawrence School well. We're going to give the go-ahead to our engineers and architects to proceed with a plan for that. The goals being to provide potential for some degree of backup power generation and whatever other ideas they can get to enhance that system further. Curriculum and special services met. Mrs. Wilson discussed best practices and a review of our self-contained sections for next year. And with Mr. Linsky, our Director of Curriculum and Vice Principal, we discussed the possibility of switching from a program called MAPS to a program called Link It. And he has some data that he's going to present that he was able to get from Link It regarding some trends in our school performance and just kind of an idea of where we should go in the future. I'd like to invite him up, Mr. Linsky.
Nick, I'm gonna blind you.
No, it's mine, I'm gonna come back.
And while he's pulling that up, I also had the opportunity to attend a lot of events in the community. I know you were all part of them. Wantage Township and Sussex Borough tree lighting events, the West Book Fair. I didn't make it out this time to the Sussex Middle School basketball fundraiser, but it was a great event. 4th grade concerts, the middle school concert, Wantage School senior citizen luncheon. All, as always, awesome events. Special thanks to the folks who made those events possible, who volunteered their time to participate, namely PTO, faculty and staff, SWIA, SMS trip fundraising folks, parents. 5th grade concert was postponed until tomorrow. Today at the Lawrence School, Santa made a visit. I took some heat because we changed some of our Spirit Week around. So tomorrow's going to be the Polar Express Day where kids get to wear pajamas. We had to move that from today because today was the only makeup day that Santa had with his busy schedule. So I didn't think it was a big idea. We just moved Polar Express over here. We wear our pajamas today, but I was bombarded by staff who said, Mike, you can't watch the Polar Express unless you're in pajamas. So I didn't know that was a rule, but we moved it till tomorrow. Mr. Linsky?
All right, so this is a set of data that was taken from Lincoln, and they provided this presentation to me to some extent. Ultimately, it's a 5-year analysis of our park and now NJSLA scores. So I'm just going to highlight some of the things that were in there. It's a little small, so I apologize. It was tough to fit on the slide. But ultimately, this is the ELA achievement growth. What you're looking at in this chart is ultimately the achievement over 5 years in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in language arts. So just to kind of expedite looking at this, I'll leave it up for a minute, but ultimately over on the right-hand side, these are the numbers that ultimately represent the amount of growth over the period of 5 years. So over here is meeting and exceeding expectations in language arts, and ultimately over the past year, we're going to be looking at this bottom line. So last year, anything that's in green ultimately means that our numbers went up there in terms of people in the range of 4 or 5, which is meeting or exceeding expectations. So for language arts, the numbers were really good and pretty impressive growth-wise. Ultimately having only 2 grade levels that dropped in terms of the others were all rising. Another number that was extremely kind of impressive on this was in the 8th grade specifically, is the not meeting and partially meeting. We had 15% of the students get out of that level and kind of grow, which out of levels 1 and 2, which is a really impressive number. This is the same thing, just kind of a visual representation over the past 5 years. Again, the last bar is last year. So you'll notice in the middle school specifically, there's been a lot of growth over the last 3 years. It's kind of been a steady trend of growth. And overall, again, same thing, same numbers as before, just a visual representation. All right, so this chart I thought was pretty cool. Again, this was provided by Linkit. So this is showing the movement in the students moving from grades 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. So this is tracking the students that were previously in grade 3 moving up to grade 4, how they did over that 2-year span. So this is saying that over those years, the green is representing the students that moved up a level. So moving from level 1 to 2, or 2 to 3, 3 to 4. So the green is representing who's moving up. The yellow represents who stayed the same. And then the red is representing who dropped a level. Again, those numbers are extremely high. And ultimately, our growth percentage over the whole district put us in the top third of schools that Linkit did this report for. Again, that's unbelievable in terms of the growth there. All right, a piece of this presentation is required by the state. Race is one of the things I had to throw in there. This chart is extremely misleading, ultimately because our numbers are not even. So it looks like this is, this represents our whole population. Really, a majority of our population falls in the white category. The numbers of how many we have of each race are down here on the bottom. So this chart is a little bit misleading. I'm just going to skip past it. And then gender, I thought this was really interesting. This was ELA. Our female students across the district consistently perform higher than our male students, so that's something to kind of consider and take a look at and try to figure out why there. I just thought that was kind of an interesting representation of that. All right, and then math achievement and growth. A couple things to point out here. So this past year was the first year that we moved all 8th graders, or majority of the 8th graders, to taking algebra. So you'll notice, I apologize, in the meeting and exceeding category, down for Algebra 1, it looks not so great. It's saying that we dropped down to 45% dropped. That 45% drop is because they're taking algebra as opposed to taking 8th grade math. So even though that looks a little bit concerning, it's largely in part because of the change from moving from 8th grade to algebra. All right, and then again, same thing, this is the visual representation of those numbers. And then you'll see down in the 8th grade category, if you were to add those up, it doesn't add up to 100% because not 100% of our 8th graders are taking the 8th grade test. Let's say
Is there any advanced math, like you're saying you're taking algebra? Last year we had 8th grade math and algebra, or 2 years ago.
Yep, so
What's the separation?
Guys, so there's students that take geometry, there's students that take algebra, and students that take 8th grade math in 8th grade. There's also 7th graders that take algebra. And then there's an advanced 6th grade that's taking pre-algebra.
So the ones that aren't included on this would be the geometry, 8th grade?
Yeah, geometry's not up here, correct. All right, and then here's tracking growth. You can kind of see the jump in grades here. It gets a little bit confusing looking at this because of the advanced courses. So you'll see there's 6th graders jumping to Algebra 1 because they're taking algebra in 7th grade. There's 7th graders, I don't know why that's there, I apologize, going to Algebra 1, and then this was for the whole district over on the side. But that's showing that jump. This is representing 2 going to algebra, from 6th to Algebra 1 and from 7th going to Algebra 1. And again, this is a little bit misrepresenting the numbers ultimately because of that jump. You expect to see a drop in numbers there with moving to that Algebra 1 program in 8th grade. All right, and then proficiency by gender, this is what I found interesting. So looking at language arts, the female students in the district are doing much better than the male students in the district. But then in math, it was generally pretty equal over the 5 years. So I kind of found that interesting, the difference between those two subjects there. All right, and then this is a comparison of our numbers in language arts versus the state numbers. So, for example, the first column for each level, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, The first column represents our district percentage of third graders in this one that were at level 1. This is the state number. So our district, state, district, state, district, state, district, state. And then same thing for math. This includes the Algebra 1 and geometry scores. And then the last slide, just to highlight a couple quick things. Again, 81% of the 2017-2018 students that were meeting expectations on ELA continued to meet. And of the 81%, 15% moved up to the highest level, meaning exceeding expectations. That's that number that's putting us in that top third. And then 43% of language arts and coaching students, so students that didn't meet expectations but were one level below, moved up to meeting or exceeding in language arts. And then 76% of students maintained at least meeting expectations level in math. And that's all. Again, that was provided by Linkit, and ultimately, they just took our data for the 5 years and provided that information.
So Mr. Lindsay, like that was really comprehensive, there was a lot of data, data's super important. But if you could kind of narrow the scope and, give us kind of a focus statement to what we should really invest our efforts in, what areas should we look at? How would you sum it up?
So what I would say is ultimately when we're looking at those numbers for language arts, the amount of growth that we're seeing in language arts, I attribute largely in part to the workshop model that the district has moved to a couple years ago, and that teachers have had extensive training on. Since that's been implemented, that's when those growth numbers it's slowly been increasing and increasing and increasing. So right now, we do have a math consultant in that's working with the math teachers ultimately on a math workshop model. So we're kind of mirroring what was done in language arts, and hopefully that translates into those numbers being increasing for the math department as well.
Okay. Do you have an idea, like the hallmarks, just so everybody kind of has a basic understanding, the hallmarks of a workshop model as opposed to, the round robin style of...
Yeah, so traditional, the way that honestly we were probably all taught was sitting in rows and the teacher talking and kind of up there feeding you information. In that approach, which is a little bit more traditional, it can be perceived that a class is like well behaved and learning if they're just sitting there, and you could really, I'm sure if a lot of us reflect back on ourselves, a lot of times you could be sitting there and not paying attention to anything or really doing anything. So the workshop model is kind of put in place ultimately to have the students doing the work as opposed to the teacher doing the work. The students need to do and play with the materials and work with each other. In the world that we're in now, working with each other is everything. So they get used to working together and grappling with the materials and learning the materials that way as opposed to being fed the information. I often say to our teachers at the middle school, when I reflect on it, if I'm in a college course that I'm not really interested in, I want to sit there. And I want to sit there not because I want to learn what the teacher's talking about. I want to sit there because I don't want to do anything. If I'm interested in it, I want to be in groups. I want to be talking to everybody. I want to be engaged. So the workshop model is engaging the students and kind of getting away from just sitting there and being compliant versus engaged.
Thank you, Mr. Linsky. Thank you for your presentation. I also want to say, I think I speak for the board when I say it's rare that someone of your caliber kind of comes along. Even though your time with us hasn't been as long as any of us would have liked, it's certainly profound. I walk down the hallways here, the kids love you, the faculty and staff love you. We appreciate everything you've done for us. We wish you well in your future endeavors. And perhaps the greatest thing I could say about you, just in the short time I've gotten to know you, is that I worked with a whole host of people over my time in a variety of different aspects of professions. Sometimes when a person knows that they're leaving, I'm going to use the term check out. Right? Check out, you don't really see them, we don't get a productivity out of them. And Mike's basically like 180 degrees from that, up till the very end, he's putting presentations like this together, and time away from his family and his young kids. So I want to say thank you, give you a round of applause.
I just want to say thank you to everybody encouragement and support from everybody on the board and the community. My time in the middle school has been unbelievable, and I'm extremely sad to go. And I had a long conversation ultimately with Mrs. Citro today, my counselor, for I'll be upset on Friday. So I was telling her I'm going to need your consoling, so be prepared for that. But ultimately, thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it. And again, I'm definitely going to miss it here a lot. Thank you.
And next up, I'd like to ask Mrs. Wright to introduce our auditor presentation.
Thank you.
Just because she has the pronunciation down.
Ms. Adiwala from the Sussex-Wantage Company is here to talk about the 2018-2019 audit.
So, thank you very much for having me. Hard to follow the wonderful presentation about the veterans.
You have a plaque for us?
Sorry, not going to exciting. I do have a 3-page handout that I think you should have. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'm first going to cover is what we call the capital regional book, the finances, and then I'll cover the small management report. So on the first page of the handout, I'm talking about the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the district, where the both of the instructional, administrative, transportation, capital outlay, and maintenance expenses. And the budget is supported by 3 types of revenue. The first is local revenue, which is principally the tax levy. So the budget for the local revenue is $15.4 million. The actual is $15.4 million, excess of approximately $56,000. And that was due to excesses in tuition revenue of approximately $47,000, and miscellaneous revenue of $16,000, and a small deficit in transportation revenue of $17,000. And then state revenue, which is your state aid, budgeted at $7.5 million, actual revenue of $7.9 million, excess revenue of $392,000. That was due to excess extraordinary aid of $29,000. That's extraordinary special education cost aid, non-public transportation aid of $15,000, and homeless tuition reimbursement of $57,000. And then federal revenue was budgeted at $32,000, came in at $7,000, excess of approximately $55,000. That was all due to semi or Medicaid reimbursement. So overall, we had an excess of revenue of $503,000. Then we talked about the expenditures or appropriation. The final budget, including the prior encumbrances, which were purchase orders for replace last year for goods or services, which were not rendered until the following year, and they were added in into the following year's budget. So the final budget, including the encumbrances, was $25.7 million, actual $23.98 million, unexpended $1.7 million. Included in the 1.7 is approximately $790,000 of current year encumbrances. So truly there was about $925 truly unexpended balances. We factor in the encumbrances and the actual amount, spent about 96% of the budget, and I see somewhere between between 92 and 98%. So right there, So right below that, I have a recap of fund balance for the year. We started off with general fund balance. At the beginning of the year, with $5.9 million, we used $1.1 million of fund balance to support the 19 budget. We liquidated the prior encumbrances of $751,000. Had a budgeted withdrawal from the capital reserve of $906,000. Cancel the prior interfund payable with unemployment of $77,000. We factor in the excess of revenue of $503,000 and the unexpended budget balances of $1.7 million, and end the year with total fund balance of $5.4 million. But if you'd be kind enough to turn to the second page, I'd like to go over the components of general fund balance. Some of those funds are for specific purposes and not available for use revenues. So we have the current and the prior year have what we consider excess surplus. So at the end of this year, we had $791,000 of excess surplus, which we need to use in the fiscal year 21 budget. We had prior year excess surplus of $1.4 million, which we use in the 20 budget. We have $1.578 of capital reserve, which is used for the local share fund otherwise they haven't, but have the number. So there was a decrease from the year prior of approximately $550,000. That was due to the net budgeted withdrawal of $795,000 and offset by earned deposit of $250,000. And then you also have, like I mentioned on the previous page, 790 other encumbrances. Sometimes those are varying year to year depending on what projects are going on at the time of purchase orders. And then finally, you have unassigned of $825,000. So you have the max 2% of that. And you turn to the third page, I'll go over the calculation of surplus. So the calculation for every student, there's only allowed to have a 2% max plus some additional funds as bonuses. So what you do is you take your total expenditures for the year, which were $23.98 million, times that times 2%, that calculates to $680,000. Then they allow you to add some additional funds in there if you had any excess over what was budgeted for certain types of state aid. And that would be non-public transportation and extraordinary aid. And you had a combination of those things, up to $140,000, so we take it $180,345, come to a maximum unassigned of $825,000. Then it's simply a calculation to determine if you have an excess surplus. So you take the total fund balance, $5.4 million, subtract out the money that has been set aside for specific purposes, the encumbrances, the excess surplus from the prior year, the capital reserve, and then you come down to a number, and that's the 1.6, and you compare that against the max. And if you subtract those and there's a positive number, you have excess surplus. So that's the $791,000, which I'm using in fiscal year 21. For the last couple of years, we've been have some excess surplus. So overall, I think we're in a strong financial position, have money in capital reserve, we have the max 2%. So if you could turn back to the first page, I'd like to go over some additional information about the district. We have two enterprise funds. These are supposed to act like businesses and be self-supported. So they have something called an acquisition, which is very similar to fund balance. So you have two enterprise funds, the food service fund and the aftercare. So the food service fund and the cafeteria had an acquisition that went down from $8,000 to $169,000, and that was due to an increase in operating expenses that were not offset by the increase in service sales. But still healthy position. For the care program, the net position decreased by approximately $33,000 to $131,000. Still a strong position, and that was due to decrease in child care fees that were not offset by a decrease in operating expenses. Then you have long-term liabilities. You have no bonded debt or capital leases at the end of the year. You have two other types of liabilities. One that's called compensated absences. That's a required calculation you have to do. That's for the accrued sick and vacation of the staff, and that was $686,000. Now, please keep in mind, it's not as though the district is going to close down. You have to pay out the full $686,000. You budget and pay out, yes, when people when they're leaving for retirement. And then we have $6.18 million in pension liability in the PR pension system. Traditionally, those are folks that are secretaries, custodians, aides, and bus drivers. So we need those people. And just like the compensated offices, you pay what you're required of here. They give you a bill. That's the maximum you pay, and you're paying everything you have. It's just those folks that are in that system as they vest, just like then we always try to provide some management suggestions to all our districts every year. And one of them has to do with the earned sick leave law that came into effect at the end of October. We will find in our discussions with our districts that there are certain classes of employees that might become eligible under this, that might not have been eligible before, such as substitutes. I know it doesn't really make sense for the substitute to earn sick time, but it's the rule in the law, so just passing that along as a suggestion of awareness. And then we always like to keep you apprised of any upcoming accounting standards. So the GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standard Board, sets the standards for what the financial statements look like. And next year, we will have the GASB report, which has to do with fiduciary activities. It will not affect the district's records on a day-to-day basis, but the presentation of certain funds such as student activities, the unemployment trust, and payroll, they might show up in different spots in the audit. We're reading some guidance from education as to what those things. I've been to some conferences and gotten some conflicting answers as to how certain things need to be. But overall, the record's in very good shape. They intercept all their help and assistance. We're there, they're trying to get their job done, and they're asking a lot of questions. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to present the results of the report. And if you haven't answered any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions? Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I wish you all a wonderful holiday.
You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just on behalf of the board, I'd also like to thank Mrs. Riker and her staff for all their hard work. There are thousands of bills and things to keep up with in the district, and she is always very on top of things, and as is her staff. So thank you, Mrs. Riker.
Thank you, Mrs. Riker.
Thank you, Mrs. Riker.
All right, at this time, we will move on to we're going to do audience remarks. So, audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district.
Hello. Make mine short. I just want to give you an update. Lisa Van Orden, SWEA president, on our Pride grants that we've used recently throughout the district. At conference time, back in November, we spent $719 handing out notepads for all the parents that came to conferences. At the book fair, we handed out totes for the PTO, and that was about $2,300 for the kids to purchase the books and to take something home with them. And at the tree lighting, we spent $600 on little snowman bags to hand out to the kids. So I just wanted to give you an update and let you know that I think both events went very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. You too.
Are there any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the board secretary certification, please.
Pursuant to NJAC 6A23A-16.10 C3, I certify that as of October 31st, 2019 and November 30th, 2019, no line item account has encumbrances and expenditures which in total exceed the line item appropriation in violation of NJAC 6A23A-16.10.
All right, we will move on to the approval of board minutes for September 25th, 2019, regular and executive session, and October 30th, 2019, regular session. Looking for a motion.
Motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Craig?
I abstain for September and yes to October.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes for September and to abstain for October.
I actually did mine backwards. Thank you. I did mine backwards.
I will make that.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Mrs. Franzan.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes to September 25th, and I abstain October 30th.
Mrs. Whitty.
No to September 25th, regular session. Yes to the executive session, and yes to October 30th.
Mr. Dansky.
Yes. All right, at this time, we are going to move into executive session. Approximately 45 minutes. Let me get a resolution, please.
Whereas pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12B, the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education may exclude the public from that portion of a public meeting at which the board discusses any of the matters described in NJSA 10:4-12B 1-9. Now therefore be resolved that the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education shall enter into closed session to discuss personal and legal matters. Now therefore be it further resolved by the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education that pursuant to NJSA 10:4-13B, the time when and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public is when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Looking for a motion? Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Right, we are going to move back into public session for the presentation of agenda items.
Under personnel, I'd like to move items 1
For
through
December?
3rd.
Sorry, December we're doing? Oh, yes.
Yes. Under personnel, items 1 through 32, noting that item number 14 was modified to show step 4, $55,107.
All right, looking for a motion.
Wait.
What were we saying, 1 to 32? 33. 33. 32.
What about 14?
Excuse me, I know it's late.
What did you say?
All right, we have a motion.
Salary was modified.
On the
It was
agenda.
originally listed on your first document as step 3, it should be step 4.
Yeah, there's a separate page that you got that it was highlighted on.
Okay.
You need a second.
Just looking for a second.
I'll second. Yeah.
Thank you. Discussion.
Number 25. I have a hard time with talking about a teacher who's been in the district and then left and then comes back and automatically gets that 100. I don't know if anybody else.
Say that again?
So the teacher
Right.
leaves the district, retires, comes back 6 months later and gets the $100. Doesn't have to go through the 10 years of service.
As a substitute, yes.
Yeah, so what I'm seeking to do, so everybody understands, is that, we modified the substitute teacher rate for people with 10 years or more, right, it went up to $200. So what I'm saying is that people who've worked here as a teacher, then retire, then come back, I want to encourage to come back. My feeling is that they should be respected to give them the $100 figure.
And you have a problem with that, Colleen, or no?
I just want clarification.
Oh,
I have a problem with it. I have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's, in a sense, disrespectful to the substitutes who have been here doing that.
why?
Because they served here as substitutes.
But a teacher's put their time in. You're saying the teacher's been here for 20 years, or at least 10 years? They put the 10 years in.
Correct.
So they've
So they've actually been here more than a sub has been here.
And
because they're
they
here
have
every single
actual
day.
experience
Right.
delivering the
They're here
curriculum.
every
We want them in the classroom because they have, I don't want to belittle.
I agree that I want them in the classroom.
Yeah, and
That's
in
what I
order to
agree.
get them here,
But
we're
why
having
would they come
issues
here
getting
for
them to,
peanuts.
and I think it's important that they get shown a level of respect and know that we want them to come back and do that.
But if you have a New Jersey teacher certificate, you get 90. And so you're not showing those people that don't have 10 years respect.
But these people have 10 years service to our community.
But as a teacher with a union, with benefits, with, I'm allowed to work more than, 28 hours a week, and the substitutes gotta scratch for all this kind of stuff.
We're not able to attract enough people to be substitutes.
Aren't we having a problem finding subs in a lot of fashions?
We do have a fill rate that's, it's challenging.
Right.
Because
I know we're
they
having
all
problems
have
with the
to
bus
be
drivers,
higher.
with the.
I mean, I still have a hard time with, they still getting, 85 and 90. I still have a hard time with that. Because
Because
other
it's low.
districts, you can go to other districts and get 100.
Right,
For
because it's low.
the same, there's no levels.
And we're talking about custodians and stuff too now, so I mean, it all really needs to be, again,
So I mean, if the board's comfortable, this is kind of, it can become something to build upon.
I agree that 85 is low. If we want to get people under 10 years of service, with under 10 years of service.
Yes.
And what happens, we pull from other areas, areas to have people sub in that are in the school itself. So, I think we can be cheap in this area, that's my own opinion. And battling with late, and then 14 or something.
I hear you.
Yeah, sports good.
I don't know, because I'm not a teacher, isn't it kind of different, to be a good teacher is different than being a good sub, it's a different job, like, just because you're, I use the analogy, just because you're a great everyday baseball player doesn't mean you're a good pinch hitter off the bench, it's like,
No, I'm not saying that they're not a good substitute. What I'm saying is
I think
that
it's a different
a
job.
teacher has been protected all this time, and then she can leave,
And
and
they
the substitutes have to claw their way to try and get, we're still talking about substitute pay right now, which started back in February, and I'm sure probably before then. And so it's kind of like another in their face that way too.
What do other people think that aren't voting with Grace for other opinions?
We could do more, if it works.
What about
with
what
the
he's talking
projects.
about though with I guess the first question is, the teacher that's been teaching for 10 years that retires, or 10 years that he's coming into subbing, are you good with
I
them?
feel they have that much more experience, and
Correct.
they're still with the kids.
I agree on that issue. I also think our bottom number is low to attract people, so I think there's two issues.
I'm just looking at the sub that's worked 8 years and still getting the 85. And, I'm a teacher, I support teachers 100%. I don't know if I agree with the protected part. Just because we're unionized, it doesn't mean that we're protected.
No, but I mean.
But, it just.
Well, didn't these these numbers come up? Weren't these numbers now elevated from what they were?
I think by $5.
Yeah,
Okay, but I agree with what Mike said, I think it's a great idea. Couldn't this be a foundation, being that we're already in December? So by the time this all starts happening, we're in 2020, then we still have to then sit down and look at the budgets, because that's all coming, the dreaded budgetary cycle. So is it not a starting point that then we can then go back and evaluate and say, okay, that bottom number, let's bring up that bottom number, but it still attracts people back to the district. I know, and I hear it from my kids, because my kids are in the district, like, we couldn't get a sub, or we couldn't, so it brings them in, the teachers that were here, but then let's look at that bottom number and see if we can elevate that. So use it as a stepping stone.
Maybe if it meets with the board's expectation for the budget cycle, we can come back and do some data analysis to see what it would look like to cost to go 100, 95, 90.
That's fine, but you're giving 10-year teacher.
Number 25 is on the agenda for your consideration.
is there any other discussion on personnel?
What if Sue Fields, going out of office field? Come on, you're too quiet.
Yeah. About number 25?
Yeah, about the 10-year teacher going back to substitute.
Why not? You want subs, you need subs.
I think about it, if we can bring back a few retiring teachers each year to sub, and they get hooked. We
No
can,
different
little
than-
by little, maybe get rid of our issue.
I don't think you're gonna get a majority.
Yeah, I don't even know, you know, I wouldn't even characterize it as get hooked. It's more like in my mindset, why would I come back for less than this person?
Right.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, they want the money too. So, I'm good with it.
Any other discussion?
Nope, I just wanna say, hold on, I just wanna say thanks to all the people that are retiring, leaving, resigning. Thank you all very much for your service. It's great. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, number 11, I would just like to, that's Mrs. Thinalakis, so you guys don't have to look. Had the privilege of knowing her for almost 20 years, I can't believe we're that old. Going through the school district, and just been a pleasure, you know, watching you set the bar and meet it, set the bar again, meet it, and you have a tough act to follow, Mr. Lunsky, but you know, I have no doubt that if this is, you know, approved, that you're going to do a great job.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Bless
you.
Sorry.
so thanks for stepping up to the.
Bless you. Thank you.
Bless you.
Ah, so you took it away. You guys
Any-
scared me right now?
Anything else, Mrs. Craig?
No, I'm done now. Oh my God, normally I sneeze 8 times.
All right, roll call.
I feel like going to fence.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Dust?
Yes.
Ms. Van Zandt?
No on 25, yes on.
Mrs. Whitty?
No on 25, and I have to abstain on number 11, though if I could vote, I would definitely be a yes.
And yes to the rest? Mr. D'Agostino?
No on number 25, and yes on the rest.
Motion carries.
Under policy, I'd like to recommend items 1 through 3.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, discussion? Any discussion?
I will, a little bit of a discussion. Under number 1, number SMS, number 4, there were conflicting errors in the report, and I spoke to the president. And they were not corrected, so I'll be voting no for that.
I think if you refer to, was it pronoun or?
Yes.
This is the first time it's being presented to the board,
Yes.
so there's no vote, you're just really recognizing it and an administrative change can occur.
It can occur.
Can,
It was on November's thing, it's had some time to.
Yeah,
Would
but
have
we
to
haven't.
be-
We didn't have the meeting in November.
Yeah, it has to be,
Could have been.
once it was distributed to the board, it has to stay probably as is without delivering another packet. Is that accurate? Or,
You could reissue another for the upcoming meeting or the second time it's being presented with the caveat of what was changed.
and if there was a change, does it have to go through first and second
The
reading?
disposition is remaining the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's just a clerical correction, you can present it for the second time as a second time, but I would just make that change in the actual report.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Dust?
Yes, and no on number 2.
Ms. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
I don't know how you want to do that, but on number 1, I'm still going to say no to the SMS 4. So I don't know if that's no for all of them, or but yes for the rest of number 1. Number 2 is a no, and number 3 is a yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under finance, I'd like to move items 1 through 21.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Any discussion?
And we'll have the folks out who are making various donations, spearheading Drive One for Your School, and we'll recognize them in a way towards the end of the year with retirees and things of that nature.
Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Ranzan?
Yes.
Ms. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Liddy?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under special services, I'd like to go items 1 through 21.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second?
We'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion.
Just a quick question, why is 15 through 20, why was there an increase?
Because the ancillary, sorry, the ancillary services agreement that we signed with them, if they have to send the eval out, we have to pay 6% administrative fee. So there was a change, and at the time the board approved it, we didn't know that they weren't supposed to be doing it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mrs. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Liddy?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under curriculum, I'd like to move item number 1.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Looking
I'll
for a
second it.
Thank you. Discussion.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Mr.
I
Nuss.
thought so. Thank you.
All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Ms. Fields?
You're not gonna ask any questions in your last meeting?
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Ms. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
It's like really 40.
Mrs. Steele?
We have a question
Ms.
yet.
Liddy?
Can you not do?
Did you see the one, did you see that at the last minute?
Really, 48 cents?
48 cents?
Too late.
Mrs. Liddy?
It's like,
So rough.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Wait, quick, drop the gavel.
I had it on.
All right, and we'd like to introduce and recognize our new Sussex Middle School Vice Principal Director.
Congratulations, welcome aboard.
I'm sorry, I know it's like 10 o'clock at night.
It seems so much later now.
No, not yet.
No.
are you gonna say anything?
Yes, we have to have audience remarks.
Good evening, Mr. D'Agostino, members of the Board of Education. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for this opportunity. Years ago, I entered these hallways as an eager 6th grade student. As a matter of fact, I participated in Mr. Scholes' shop class in this very classroom. I was kind of hoping they'd stay for this, but it got late. It was in this school that I developed an understanding that I needed to work with children and become a social worker. After my first encounter with the school counselor at that time, I excitedly jumped off the school bus and told my mom I knew exactly what I wanted to do as a career, be a counselor like Mrs. Rogan doing, but with special ed students. Flash forward to a couple years ago, and I became inspired in these hallways once again to begin a new chapter, this time by this sound, steady, and patient leadership style of Mr. Schwartz. Throughout my tenure here, I've had the opportunity to work with students to ensure that their social, emotional, and academic needs are met. I have a love for children and am so excited to make an even greater impact on their education. I have also been able to observe and collaborate with inspiring educators, administrators, and community members, and I'm eager to continue to do so in my new role. I'm aware that I have some big shoes to fill, but I'm confident I can do so while reflecting on the wisdom and knowledge I've learned along the way. I accept this position with great enthusiasm. It was in this school that I began my journey into educational leadership. It will be in this school that I embark on my new chapter in my life as an administrator. Not many people are able to say the same about their career in education, and I want to thank the Board of Education and this community for all that it has given me. Thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you.
And we want to wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season.
And at this point, we will move on to unfinished business. Does anyone have any unfinished business? Yes, Mr. Knight.
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to reiterate what Paul said about the activities that surrounded the Christmas tree lighting. Senior luncheon, I had an opportunity to come and help out for that. And I did get to see a rehearsal of one of the Wantage School concerts. And a lot of effort goes in from various members of our community, both staff members and just citizens of our town. I shouldn't say just citizens, but the community really comes together for events like that. And I also want to congratulate our new Sussex Middle School Vice Principal and curriculum director. And I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Anyone else unfinished business?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Unfinished business, I was just wondering if there's things that were on the original November agenda that were not transferred over to December, and what happens to that?
I don't know, are you talking about a particular item?
Under personnel number, November's original, under personnel was number 7, 8, and 9, it was, it's like step up amount type things.
What? Sorry?
People moving up.
I'm moving up.
Step.
Yeah, payroll step
Yeah.
things, there were
you
some
know-
in November that were not transferred over.
In short, it's not approved right now, right? But I'll go back and look at it.
Any other unfinished business? All right, we'll move on to new business. Does anyone have any new business?
I do. People
Yes.
in the audience, you know.
The two people, before people.
Look, there's four. No.
Charlie, you count.
I
Don't
count,
worry.
thank you.
Mr. Gall put this in our rundown, about the church that was doing the school lunch, donation. I'm a member of that church, and our church is very small. It's got maybe 30 parishioners there. And so if anybody wants to donate, whatever you donate, the church is gonna match. So our donations already were over $1,500.
Wow.
So if we can just do a little bit more, we do $20, we match $20, just to get our student lunch that down would be greatly appreciated. I'm sure Mr. Ball might have information for the church, or Mrs. Riker might have it. If not, you can contact me, I have it. But it's a great thing that they're doing. They do a lot for the community. So if you guys know anybody that want to donate, then donate. It'll be a great help. So we don't have to pay for it anymore.
Is there any way, like, does the community know about that? Like,
I think, yeah.
where, at least they would know that it,
Not
I
to
don't
my,
know.
we just do it in our church every week.
Right.
We announce it.
but is there any way that we can let the school community know? Or is that getting?
I think it would be better.
If we had paper menus that we would send them, the little yellow ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it would, because I
It's a
don't
great
think
thing that they're doing.
it's an awesome thing, and I just don't think a lot of people know about it.
No, and it's true, they don't. We
Yeah.
just do it in church every week, and we just pass the word. Mr. Gall heard about it when I talked, because I went to Nashville, and I came back, and I happened to call him a couple days later, and he heard about it
Actually, on
From
the
the
flag from the
mailing.
mailman.
on the mail.
No official
That's
correspondence.
So,
Area schools or local communities post flyers before we do this.
but, it's a great thing that they're doing. They do a lot. So, and if we can eliminate, our goal is to eliminate one school lunch day. So if we could do one, if we could do all three, that would be wonderful. But we're trying to do one that has maybe the highest or mediocre, or whatever we do. So,
If we come to a better conclusion as to how we can prevent that from continuing to go up, if that, let's say, did get a raise, let's pretend it got a raise. Is it just gonna happen again?
Well, yes, it could, because
It could.
I think as a board, we all recognize that we don't want to, and it's interesting, there was just a survey done where they surveyed all the schools in the state, and the number of schools that do alternate meals, which is something we talked about not wanting to do, there are more of those that do that than the opposite. But until we come up with a plan, because I think maybe the principals reaching out, or the guidance counselors, or somebody reaching out to those families to see if there's something going on, and giving them services that they may need, having them apply for free and reduced, because some people don't do that. But beyond that, there are people that just are not paying, and there's no repercussion, so it can build for 3 years, because we're still giving them a lunch, we're not turning them away, we're not identifying them.
They get snacks too.
No, they're not allowed to get snacks, no. So I think we still have to continue to look at it, but yes, it could be erased, and it could be exactly in the same place with different students. You know, if we
Right.
let them get to 8th grade and, you know, maybe people that are 8th grade that have the opportunity to pay and they haven't, maybe they don't get to walk in graduation until, like, other schools do things like that. Not somebody that cannot pay, but if somebody's just choosing not to pay, we have to, I think those are the ones that we have to address first, get students the services they need and figuring out a way to keep
People
it down.
don't want to apply for free reduced lunch, it's a pride thing, or they don't know how, or.
Or they don't think about it.
Yeah, yeah, so.
So if you wanna donate to our church, it's the Sussex-Wantage Church, 2 Street. So, donate away, so it'll make our life easier.
Is there any other new business?
I have a new business. I want to make a recommendation that students of the month need to pause so that their guests can take a picture maybe. You know, I mean, like, I know Mr. Mooney used to stop and take a picture. I'm not looking for that, but I'm just looking at, like, maybe you guys can, like, say to the student, can you just stop for a second? So that-
Yeah, I think Mrs. Ransan's right. It's kind of tight over there. Maybe we can come up with a
Maybe you
new.
can push over that way a little bit.
Why did we have this tight?
Because it used to be, we used to be
The
over
tables are
here.
down this way.
Yeah.
And I think
We need
that
to-
we're a little bit further up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to, we
Well, I
can
mean,
create some
just so you
space
can,
by
like,
just moving
tell
over
them to
2
stand
feet
still
that
for
way
a second
and
so
a
that they
foot
can get
that
a
way.
picture where it's not a blur.
Yeah, maybe we
Because
can,
even
we
over
can
there,
invite the family up to take a photo,
No,
probably.
you don't have to do that either. You just have to
Because a lot
get
of
the
them
kid to stop for a second
Yes,
so that
and
it's
take
not
the
a blurred picture.
Right.
Or whoever's reading it could, like, Nick and whoever's handing it out could stand here and right in the center. That's a good idea. Because then I don't have to do these pictures and I'm always seen.
I won't be here anymore for you to lean on.
Right, the request was to get the kid to stop so that.
Right.
What does that tell you,
But I
Ken?
think
I'm
moving.
just-
Would be helpful too,
Yeah.
yes.
Whoever sits next to me, God, Christina.
Right. Any other new business?
Yes,
Yes.
sorry. I'd like to see if maybe on the Board of Education meeting schedule, if we can have snow dates already listed and planned. Snow dates, postponement dates, cancellation dates, whatever you want to call them for our board meetings.
Oh, wait,
As
that's
if there's a board meeting supposed to be tonight and it snowed, if it's, you know, canceled for tonight for whatever reason, whether a wire comes down and
But you still have
catches
to
the grass
advertise
on
it,
fire or
so
whatever.
It's a
It
good idea. Can
advertises
we
exactly
advertise
what
it as
you're
a
saying,
snow date?
it's, you know,
Well, we would have
cancellation,
to
snow date.
we would have to approve a meeting schedule that had snow dates already built into it, and that would be advertised, because, you know, canceling a meeting, you can't have it the next night, because I need the 48-hour window for advertising, and if I place an ad, it's not gonna place the next day, like, it's, so you would have to do it in advance.
So we do
For
a
the
whole
winter
whole
months.
calendar.
But how far in advance do you need to let people know you can't have it on the, like, the notice can't be? Obviously, if it's snowing tonight, people, and you go there and we're not there, then it's tomorrow.
48 hours.
She just said
Yeah,
48 hours.
48 hours.
Right.
It has to be.
So,
So you would have to, correct me if I'm wrong, we would have to pre-approve a calendar that had built-in snow days already in it.
It would be similar to the calendar you approve now, let's say your meeting dates are
Right, and that's
the
exactly-
alternate.
right, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Didn't somebody say earlier that we're not having any more snow days?
Well, yeah, but you know. Whether it be,
looking
you know, a snow day, or we have to cancel it because something happened with the power and we
You
didn't
would
have it
almost
that
want to
night.
place an alternate date for every meeting,
Yeah.
right?
We have
Not
to-
every meeting. Well, what, it would
That's
take
what you're,
years.
that's.
Yeah,
that's
I
part of
am.
what you're saying.
I am, it doesn't
in
matter,
July.
because the power can go out and we have the meeting canceled for that, or whatever else comes up, or,
An alternate.
you know, and whatever,
We're
if it's
volunteers, I think we
feasible,
can deal with it.
the Wednesday, our normal Wednesday, and then the
Right,
following Monday,
I
for
think
purposes
that
of.
one thing that might be problematic with that is that you never know, like, you're gonna be doing all these alternate dates, and then this is gonna have to be.
What if
available.
Reps is that night, we don't have the
Right, and what
schedule?
if it's-
What if the play is that night, but we
Yes.
don't have the schedule?
Yeah.
What if there's something else
So you
We would
have
significant?
to-
already have this, I don't understand, we would already have this schedule.
Right, what I'm saying is that instead of the 12 days, you would actually be booking up 24 days, and you would have to keep in mind the months with the play or concerts or different, like, we already moved concerts, so I'm not saying that I'm just saying that that would have to be taken into account. That whatever the date is, nobody could plan anything on those evenings because we would be planning for that evening.
I like the idea a lot. There's also
Sure.
the concern that if it's like a snowstorm, it could be 2 or 3 days that school's closed, like we've already seen. So the snow date, would be.
Be like this for the next year.
Or, so, yeah.
We'll be
Give it
there,
as well.
Only December.
I mean, you have to book the extra days, we don't have to necessarily use them. but we can book them.
No, I know, and we wouldn't necessarily use them, but nothing else could be planned, like we wouldn't want
Right.
another event
And in
planned.
December, it's hard. In
Yes.
December, that would be hard because you have all
You
those
don't know next year,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, you don't know
And the
next year,
months of
that
the
takes
class
us
is
into September
difficult.
through December.
Yep.
So we don't know what that game plan runs for that year. We have it set for this year till June, but not September.
So you have the year.
It's only a school
So
board
just
meeting.
cover
But
this.
we have snow dates for everything else. And, we actually just approved, we just approved a rain date for a play that's inside of the school. So, I think that we can find other days for Board of Education meetings. I mean, I joined the board feeling as though it was a responsibility that I had and important for us to get together.
But I don't think anyone's saying by not
I'm
having
not
a
either, I'm just
backup
saying that I
meeting.
think that it warrants having a backup plan for when we're not able to get together.
I know what you're saying, we should never not have, we shouldn't have gone a whole month without a meeting. Because then,
That's
like
what I'm
you
getting-
said,
right,
there's some
right.
confusion in the agenda and,
But we didn't, there was a snow day when we were supposed to have.
no, we didn't have a
How-
meeting in
how-
November, we didn't take care of business for one whole month we missed.
Right, but we.
Right, that was
It
due
was
to the
around
weather.
Thanksgiving.
Well,
No,
Right.
it's weather.
We
One was
should
a
have- we
power,
should have
one was
had
a
a
power
meeting.
outage, and then the next
To
one was.
take care of,
the
to
weather.
take care of the financial obligations of this Board of Education, we're supposed to have a monthly
When?
meeting,
When?
whenever we can reconvene.
And
But
this
you
is,
wouldn't
this
have
is
had
why
that.
it's built into the calendar, we're already set and ready to go.
Yeah, we
Because I think it's
rescheduled
more
the-
important for us to have
I don't know, there was discussion
Well, we
about
rescheduled
everybody
the
being
December
canceled,
meeting
nobody
because we
else.
had no school, and board members don't wanna come to meetings when we have no school. So we tried to reschedule it for a day where we had no school. I get the backup plan, but I just think, we could have a terrorist squirrel in another snowstorm, and then we have our backup plan screwed up. I just don't think anybody can predict that, that's all I'm saying.
It's
Where
been
would the
crazy.
backup
This
plan be?
month has been crazy.
The backup plan is exactly what we did, that we say, hey, back in November, we said we're gonna do December 4th. Little did we know that Mother Nature was gonna unleash holy hell on us and have 3 snow days.
I think
So we
there's-
did have a
I
backup
think there's 4
plan.
months that we could have, like a backup plan that possibilities and like,
We definitely
chances
looked
of
at
having
Yeah, I
to,
can agree
yeah.
with that.
Like for December, January, February, March, if we had an alternate date set ahead,
Yeah.
and we all would have that plan for ourselves and moving forward, we wouldn't, most likely, we'd have a lot less chance of not convening in a whole month.
Well, this,
And not
that's,
having
this whole
things that
last
get lost
episode
in
was a
the
fluke.
agenda, like,
Yeah,
Like
we
Mrs. Wade
rescheduled.
said.
Yeah, you like it.
We
It
had
was a
to,
fluke.
we
I mean,
canceled
Well,
when we
you know what?
rescheduled.
I think I can make a motion here, and it's getting late. So I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize the amendment of the BOE meeting schedule to include a built-in cancellation or postponement date for all regularly scheduled BOE meetings throughout the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year, effectively beginning as our scheduled reorganization meeting on Wednesday, January 8th, continuing with our regular session meeting January 29th and going forward. So, I made a motion.
So, we'll need a second. Right?
Yes, I'm looking for a voting sheet because I'm not prepared for another vote, but okay.
Anyone want a second? Snow dates?
could we have a discussion on this?
Do we need
We
a
need a
second
second,
first? Anyone?
Nobody's gonna second it?
Fine.
Would you like to second it to get to discussion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right,
I
discussion.
think that it'd be appropriate for, in order to ensure more greatly, not perfectly, totally missing a meeting like we did. I think that if you could amend that to say, for this coming January, February, and March, when there are possibilities of snowstorms, I don't think we have to go as far as to do it all the way through the year, because in May and June, there's gonna be graduations and stuff like that from college and high schools, and here, our own district. So I think that if we included the dates moving forward from this year, from December to March, because we do live in an area where it's very difficult to get around and dangerous, that we would have less of an opportunity of missing a whole month. So I would agree to that.
I agree with the winter months.
I agree
Not
with the
so much
winter
the
months,
spring.
not the whole year.
Yeah.
Don't want the winter months too, no.
It's gonna be tough in December though, with all this stuff going on too, so.
All right, so roll call.
Well,
We
we
have
have
to
to
change
officially
it.
amend.
All right, we're gonna.
Amend the motion, we have to make another motion.
But you don't have specific dates, so you're making a motion to amend the calendar for dates to be amended,
We're gonna-
determined.
Right, we're gonna have to put it on, we're gonna have to take a look at the dates administratively, see if there's anything planned, and what would be an appropriate
So are you,
date.
right.
So it may not be the next Wednesday, if,
I
because,
wanted to-
because
I
the
would want it
meeting
to be
is the
as-
next,
Right.
is the last Wednesday of the month, it's in effect going to, it would be the first Wednesday of the next month.
Could be a
We have to-
holiday, could be a
Yeah, we have to, I think we have to
conflicted
look at
event.
it and we'll propose
I
something
guess the
for
whole,
the
is
next
it
agenda.
only for winter months?
Yes.
January, February, March. But we'll have to take a look at it. So it may not be the next week, it may be 2 weeks later.
And again, I have somewhat of a problem with that because I'm not interested in it being the next week. I'm interested in being the next possible date, just like with a kid's concert or a
But she
play.
said that she has to have 48 hours in order to do it.
Sure.
So if it's a
That's a big
Wednesday,
difference between 2
48
weeks
hours.
It can't
But
be
if it's
Friday.
It can't be a Friday.
Right,
Or it
and I
can't be
think that
Thursday.
we
So it
stick
has
to
to go from
the
Wednesday because
following
of
Monday
conflicts
on.
with
The
other
next available
other
date.
municipalities' meetings. Like Wednesday is our date because the borough is on a specific day.
See, Monday-
And
Monday,
Township.
I do
We
the
actually
ed
talked about
services
that.
on Monday, we have, you know,
We've actually
How
talked
many
about
years
that.
have we been doing it? It's a fluke.
yeah.
This
Right,
is
it
a
is,
fluke.
right, it's the,
So-
I cannot remember another
Twice
time.
too.
Right, so,
Yeah.
We've had to miss a meeting due to not having a quorum, but I don't know that we've canceled meetings because of
I know
weather
the
and
time
not
I've
made it
been
up the
here,
next week.
it's never happened.
All the years that, it was just was a fluke. Who thought that we were gonna be out of school for 3 days with the storm that, nobody saw it coming.
No,
Not
you're
for a
right.
million miles
And all
away
the
did we see
electric-
what happened coming.
And we didn't see coming that the power line came down too, because we were going to have a meeting that night also.
Right, but we're never gonna see that coming. We had the same thing happen. Didn't a terrorist squirrel take a
So
line
what is
down
the
like
big
4
deal
months ago?
about being prepared and having a backup plan for a Board of Education meeting?
It's fine, but it
Is this not important enough to have covered that way?
Nobody's
Right.
saying it's not important, it's just not as easy as I get what Christina's saying, it's not
Yeah,
as simple as
administratively,
doing
I
it.
believe,
It becomes more of a
it
nightmare.
becomes very,
Whatever
pretty
we're
cumbersome to,
Right, if
Do it for all.
if this resolution passes, Mr. Grohl and I will work on a updated calendar to be approved at the January meeting that would have it, but it'll be based upon availability
so it'll just be like.
of the current calendar that's already in existence, of people that have booked events or
Whereas
other
we have the
things.
ability, if it gets canceled, to have Mike call around and say,
I need
Here's-
48
here's-
hours, can you do it anything?
correct. Whereas there's flexibility. If we go ahead and end up
Yeah.
scheduling it and having 2 scheduled dates, who knows if a fluke is gonna happen again, and then we're back in the same boat.
I don't know what you mean by the same boat. If you're not having a meeting on Wednesday and we have a date scheduled for the following Monday as a backup plan,
And I'm saying,
then
what
we
if the
already
weather-
know if
we're-
it's snowing,
Yeah, but
we
chances are,
are
it's not gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah, but
This wasn't
It
great.
is.
Mondays are not good for me because I go
And
into
I
Northern Hills.
close.
And
I work
sometimes
from
Wednesdays
home.
aren't good
Off
for
on
people
Wednesdays.
either, I mean,
I'm
it's,
yeah.
we're not planning on it
Able
happening
to
as a
be here at
backup.
night, but Mondays I work till 10 o'clock at
Oh,
night.
that's
So then we
The
just,
following
so then we
Wednesday.
just vote on, we just
Following
let them
Wednesday.
figure it
It
out.
doesn't hurt to have the alternate, I think it's a good backup. You may not use it very often, but in the event you need it, it's there. It's already pre-advertised, you don't have to worry about putting the 48 hours. In the event that your alternate is also unavailable because of another emergency, or then you do your
Then you have
traditional
Mike call around.
calling around who's available.
I recommend that you do it through the school year, because you have your calendars, you have your dates and everything, and then in the summer or when the new school year begins, you re-examine and look over your dates, but I don't think it could hurt.
Just so I'm clear, it's January, February, March, most probably February, March, and Mrs. Riker's figuring this out.
Mrs. Riker and Mrs. Wall.
All right, any more
Superintendent.
any further discussion on the motion? Roll
So
call.
wait, what is the final?
We're looking to
Wording.
amend the current year's calendar that the board previously approved to include alternate meeting dates for January, February, and March. Based upon,
Availability.
Mr. Gold and I will look at that and we'll forward it to the board for approval.
Alright, I'll make a motion.
Mrs. Whitty?
Oh.
Yes.
Mr.
Oh, we don't have to
Hyman?
go through,
No, I think they already.
No.
Mr. White.
Okay.
yes.
Ms. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
I would say no.
Ms. Ranzan?
No.
Mrs. Steele?
No.
Mr. Giagostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, is there any other new business?
Yes, one more thing and then I'm gonna have to go.
You got to vote again, too.
What is the final cost of that 8th grade trip? People are asking me and they want an answer.
I don't know what the
We
final
won't know that
determination
until
will be
April,
made,
because the
yeah.
fundraising's not
Fundraising's
done.
still going.
Didn't
They
you-
want it
I
before
thought,
April.
we have an estimate? Like,
Yeah, but I said to them, I didn't even want it,
I can
so-
put where we're at in the rundown, as far as what they know now. I would also, give you a heads up.
Total for the,
I did,
it was $1,000.
the basketball?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
Yeah. For the basketball, student, teacher basketball team.
Because I had a couple of parents ask me about it, a couple of them were upset because, you know, they have to come up with this money and they have to come up with more money and
How much $600 for people?
I don't tell them anything, I don't want to yell
They
at
already
them.
started at
Five or
like
less.
400. It was
Right,
already,
right.
the letter we got from Shane was already under,
Yeah.
already under that, but we don't have those final numbers because the first payments are typically due until April, I think it's between April 1st and April 12th if we're still working with the same company. So we don't roll those numbers out. And we also haven't put in the parents that are going because the parents are 2 per room and their fee is higher, so if that also,
But the parents are paying for their own, they're not getting a discount because of the fundraising, are they?
no, but it
No, but
helps
the-
offset
Oh,
some
I
of the
under- no, I got
cost
it. I
of the
figured it
kids
out now,
thing,
yeah.
which was
Got
set
it.
up a while ago, but we don't have those numbers until, like, we're done. I think the cutoff last year was April 12th, like, we were down to
they're
like
about
the
to-
literal line with the car wash. But I think the final numbers,
Yeah.
because we had to make that last payment, remember,
Right.
like April 12th, and
Right.
I think it was a car wash we were running, and we were like, hurry up, like, we gotta get this in, because we had to that day.
That's true.
So
So
I
when's
think
the
it was
next
the car-
payment due?
I have to check on it.
Because
I think
that's
it's
what they're,
February.
that's what they're upset about. Because I had 3 parents say to me, I wrote the check out,
Did they?
not very nice words, but the damn check bounced on me because I had to make that payment. And, you know, so now they're, you know, now they're behind the 8 ball and then they don't know when the next, how much more they're gonna have to.
I would encourage, I'll give you an update in the rundown. I would encourage if they have any questions, just go to the school.
Oh, I told them to call you.
Well, and if they need help, they can, because that's also on the
That's
sheet,
fine.
so have them call Mike.
And I still see a lot of
Understandable.
things that say, you know, Washington DC, whereas I thought we were gonna try wording it to the 8th grade class.
Anything that I've been to has been, field trip, 8th grade trip.
Oh, the basketball thing didn't say that.
Because
I didn't make that.
Because we're fundraising for this trip.
I know, but I think we gotta get that out of there, just, I mean, we all know where we're going this year, or where they're going this year, but we gotta reel them away from that Washington part, just in case that's not gonna be the case.
All right, any other new business? All right, well, I'd just like to thank Mrs. Fields and your church for doing that with the school. Lunch debt, also like to thank you for your service to the board. You always tell it like it is, and I'm glad you got to vote one more time too. I wasn't expecting that. I'd just like to thank the whole board, because some of us have been here since 4 o'clock, so it's 6.5 hours, and for those that don't know, we're volunteers, and,
For all of you.
yeah, all of you in the audience there. So just, you know, a very dedicated board we have here. When we went to, my wife Bree and I, to the luncheon, I told Miss Doherty, that I would share lyrics, at the meeting, so I have to do that. This is a good message for the holiday. You don't have to be angry or mad if you choose. When you're angry with people you love, then you lose. Put aside foolish pride, lay your arms open wide, and you'll never feel lonely and blue. So with that, I'd like to wish everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Anyone doing that? Not everybody wants.
You might as well
Alright, looking for a second.
I mean, a second.
We're not gonna do a
Feels-
second.
I'll second.
Second her
All right.
last motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, is there any audience remarks?
I just said that, no.
Alright, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.